The unexpected arrival. The sound of alarms echoed through the cockpit as Captain Ethan Cole wrestled with the controls of his small spaceship. Sparks flew from the dashboard, and the screen flashed a warning. Critical failure. Ethan gritted his teeth. He'd been through rough landings before, but this one felt like the universe itself was trying to rip his ship apart. "Hold together," he muttered, slamming buttons and twisting knobs. The planet below came into view, a lush world covered in green forests and glowing blue rivers. It looked beautiful, too beautiful for a crash landing. The ship broke through the atmosphere like a falling comet, the hull glowing red-hot. Trees rushed up to meet him as he braced for impact. The ground hit hard, shaking the entire vessel and throwing Ethan against the harness. When the dust finally settled, Ethan let out a shaky breath. His ship was ruined, smoke rising from the mangled engines. He unbuckled himself and grabbed his survival gear, a backpack, a communicator, and a small energy pistol. The jungle outside was alive with strange sounds. Birds with shimmering feathers flitted between trees, their calls echoing through the dense greenery. Ethan stepped carefully, scanning his surroundings. The air smelled fresh, but there was something unsettling about the silence that followed each bird's cry, as if the jungle itself was holding its breath. He didn't have time to wonder. The communicator in his hand was useless, showing only static. He was stranded, and if he didn't find help soon, his supplies wouldn't last long. After hours of walking, he stumbled upon something that didn't belong. A structure hidden deep in the jungle. Its walls shimmered with a faint golden glow, unlike anything he had ever seen. Vines crept up its sides, but the building itself seemed untouched by time or weather. "What is this place?" Ethan whispered, stepping closer. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. Cautiously, he approached the entrance, a large circular door with symbols etched into the surface. It slid open without a sound, as if it had been waiting for him. Inside, the air was cool and still. The walls glowed faintly, lighting the way down a long hallway. Ethan's heart raced as he moved forward. Something about this place felt alive, like it was watching him. At the end of the hallway, he entered a massive chamber. The ceiling stretched high above, and strange, alien machines lined the walls, humming softly. In the center of the room stood a figure. She was tall, with silver skin that shimmered in the light. Her hair, long and dark, framed a face that was both regal and fierce. Her eyes glowed faintly, and in her hands, she held a weapon, a sleek staff that crackled with energy. The alien woman's expression shifted from surprise to cold determination. She raised the staff, aiming it directly at Ethan. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. Ethan froze, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy, easy. I didn't mean to intrude. My ship crashed. I'm just looking for help." Her eyes narrowed, studying him like a predator sizing up its prey. "No one should be here," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "This place is forbidden." "I didn't exactly plan on crashing here," Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "Look, I don't know what this place is, but I mean no harm." The woman hesitated, her grip on the staff tightening. Ethan could see the conflict in her eyes. She wasn't sure whether to trust him or strike him down. Before she could decide, a distant sound broke the tension. A low rumble, like thunder, but it came from deep within the jungle. The woman's expression changed instantly, her eyes wide with alarm. "They're coming," she said, almost to herself. She turned to Ethan, her tone urgent. "You need to leave. Now." "Who's coming?" Ethan asked, but she didn't answer. Instead, she gestured toward a side passage. "Go. If they find you here, they'll kill you. You shouldn't have come." Ethan hesitated. He didn't know who they were, but the fear in her voice was real. Still, leaving her here didn't sit right with him. "I'm not leaving without answers," he said firmly. The woman glared at him, frustration flashing across her face. You don't understand what you've done by coming here, human. This is no place for your kind. And yet here I am. Ethan shot back. Maybe if you tell me what's going on, I can actually help. Before she could respond, the rumble grew louder, shaking the walls. The woman's gaze darted to the entrance, and Ethan could see the fear she was trying to hide. Finally, she let out a sharp breath. If you want to live, follow me. Without another word, she turned and sprinted down the passage. Ethan didn't think twice. He ran after her, his mind racing with questions. Who was this alien woman? What was this place? And who, or what, was coming for them? He didn't have answers, but one thing was certain. He had just stepped into something far bigger than he could have imagined. Secrets in the shadows. The jungle was alive, but now it seemed to breathe differently. Ethan crouched in the dense undergrowth, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Above him, the sky was painted with streaks of violet, an alien twilight settling over the land. He watched as the alien princess, though he still wasn't sure what to call her, stepped back into the glowing structure. Her movements were quick, purposeful, but there was an unmistakable tension in her shoulders. She was afraid. Ethan wasn't the type to back away when things got strange. If anything, his curiosity always got him into trouble, and this time was no exception. The warning she'd given him earlier, "You shouldn't be here, human," played over in his mind, but it only made him want answers more. Staying low, he crept closer to the structure. The golden glow from its walls pulsed faintly, casting eerie shadows across the jungle floor. He didn't know what he'd find inside, but the way she had spoken about them told him he didn't have much time to figure it out. Ethan slipped through the entrance, careful to avoid making noise. The air inside was cooler, carrying a faint metallic scent. He followed the same path as before, his boots making soft echoes against the smooth floor. This time, he didn't call out or make his presence known. He moved like a shadow, staying close to the walls. As he approached the central chamber, voices stopped him in his tracks. Deep guttural tones echoed through the hallway, voices that didn't belong to the woman. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, peering into the chamber. The alien princess stood surrounded by 3 figures, each clad in dark, metallic armor that seemed to shimmer unnaturally. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but their towering forms radiated menace. The tallest of them stepped forward, speaking in a language Ethan couldn't understand. "I told you I would deliver what you want," the princess replied, her voice steady but strained. She held her head high, though Ethan could see the tension in her posture. "You have no reason to doubt me." The armored alien snarled something in response, and the princess's calm demeanor cracked. "I'm doing this to protect my people," she said sharply. "Do not question my loyalty." Ethan's gut twisted. Whatever deal she'd made, it wasn't by choice. The way she spoke, it was clear she was walking a tightrope, caught between survival and betrayal. Then one of the armored aliens stepped closer to her, holding a device that looked like a tablet made of liquid metal. A holographic image flickered to life above it, a map of the jungle, with glowing markers spread across the terrain. Ethan strained to hear as the leader pointed at one of the markers and spoke in that guttural language again. "Do you think they suspect anything?" the princess asked, her voice dropping to a near whisper. The leader's response was curt, but the tension in the room was palpable. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just about her. It was bigger. Much bigger. Ethan's breath hitched as one of the armored figures turned, scanning the room. He pressed himself tighter against the wall, heart racing. The glow from the structure made it nearly impossible to hide completely. For a moment, the figure's helmet seemed to linger in his direction. Ethan's fingers hovered over his pistol, though he knew it wouldn't do much against their armor. The moment stretched painfully long, but then the figure turned back, its attention shifting to the princess again. Ethan exhaled quietly, his mind racing. He had to get out of here, but he couldn't leave without answers. What was the map for? Who were these armored aliens? And what role did the princess play in all of this? He slowly began to retreat, his movements careful and deliberate. But just as he turned to leave, he accidentally brushed against a metallic pipe sticking out of the wall. The faint clang echoed down the hallway like a gunshot. The room went silent. What was that? One of the armored figures growled. Ethan froze, his pulse roaring in his ears. He heard the princess speak quickly, trying to divert their attention. "Probably an animal," she said dismissively. "The jungle is full of them." But the aliens weren't convinced. The leader barked an order, and two of the armored figures began moving toward the hallway where Ethan was hiding. Panic surged through him. He couldn't outrun them, not in this narrow space. He had to think fast. Reaching into his pack, he grabbed a small flare. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. He lit it and tossed it down a side corridor, the bright red light bouncing off the walls. The aliens immediately shifted their attention, rushing toward the flare's glow. Ethan didn't wait to see what would happen next. He turned and sprinted back the way he came, his boots pounding against the floor. By the time he burst out of the structure and into the jungle, his lungs were burning. He didn't stop until he was far enough away to feel safe, crouching behind a massive tree. As he caught his breath, his mind raced. The princess was caught in something dangerous, and now he was tangled up in it too. He had a choice to make: leave this planet while he still could, or stay and figure out how to help her. Ethan clenched his fists. Whatever was happening, he couldn't turn his back now. A dangerous alliance. The fire crackled softly between them, its glow dancing across the alien princess's silver skin. She sat on the other side of the flames, her expression guarded, her sharp eyes fixed on Ethan. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of unspoken words hung heavy in the air. Ethan broke the silence first, leaning forward. "You're going to have to trust me sooner or later," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. Her lips curled into a faint smirk, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Trust you," she repeated, her voice carrying a bitter edge. "Your kind crash lands on forbidden worlds, wanders into places they shouldn't, and then expects blind trust. You're bold, human, I'll give you that." "I didn't exactly choose to be here," Ethan shot back, frustration flickering across his face. "But I'm here now. And I think we both know you're in over your head. You need my help." The princess stiffened, her expression hardening. For a moment, Ethan thought she was about to storm off, or worse, attack him. But then, to his surprise, her shoulders relaxed slightly, and she looked away, her gaze fixed on the dark jungle beyond their camp. "You're not wrong," she admitted quietly, her voice barely more than a whisper. "But helping me could get you killed." Ethan leaned back, folding his arms. "I've faced worse." She turned to him, her eyes narrowing. "You think this is some adventure, human? That you're the hero in some story? Let me make one thing clear. This isn't about you. If you get involved, there's no going back. The people I'm up against, they'll burn entire planets to protect their secrets." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine, but he didn't back down. "Then why don't you tell me the truth?" he challenged. "Who are you really? And why are you so important to them?" The princess hesitated, her fingers tightening around the weapon resting on her lap. For a moment, Ethan thought she would brush him off again, but then she let out a quiet sigh. "My name is Kalara," she said at last. "I am the last surviving heir to the Zerithian throne. My people betrayed me, stripped me of my power, and left me here as a bargaining chip. The ones you saw, the armored hunters, they're not my allies. They're my captors. They keep me alive because they think I can still be useful to them." Ethan's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected her to open up so quickly, but the weight of her words hit him like a freight train. "Why not fight back?" he asked. Kalara's eyes flashed with anger. "You think I haven't tried? I've spent years looking for a way off this cursed planet, but their reach is everywhere. Every time I come close, They tightened the leash. Ethan frowned, his mind racing. So you've just given up? Her glare could have melted steel. I don't give up, she hissed, but I know when the odds are stacked against me. Well, maybe you just need someone to even them out, Ethan said, his tone laced with quiet determination. Kalara raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. And you think you're the one to do that? A single human with a broken ship and no backup. Ethan shrugged. I've gotten this far, haven't I? She stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether he was brave or simply foolish. Finally, she stood, her tall frame casting a long shadow over the fire. If you're serious about helping, she said, her voice cool and measured, then you'll need to prove you're more than just talk. Ethan stood as well, meeting her gaze without flinching. Name it. Kalara gestured toward the jungle. There's a storage cache hidden near the cliffs. It's guarded, but inside is something I need. A data core containing the location of their primary stronghold. Without it, we don't stand a chance. And you expect me to just walk in and grab it? Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. Kalara smirked. Oh no, you won't be walking in. You'll be sneaking. Ethan laughed dryly, shaking his head. Great, love a challenge. She stepped closer, her expression serious. This isn't a joke, human. If you get caught, they'll kill you on the spot. And if you fail, I'll lose my only chance to take back what's mine. Ethan met her gaze, his expression hardening. Then I won't fail. For the first time, Kalara's stern demeanor softened, just a little. We'll see, she said quietly. As the fire burned low, the two of them began to plan. For the first time since crashing on this alien world, Ethan felt like he was finally starting to understand the stakes. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something bigger: freedom, revenge, and a chance to change the fate of an entire world. And if he had to risk his life to make it happen, so be it. The escape plan. Kalara's voice was sharp and low, cutting through the dense jungle air. Keep your head down. They'll see any movement above the tree line. Ethan crouched lower, his back pressed against the rough bark of a massive alien tree. The jungle was alive with strange sounds, chirps, clicks, and the occasional guttural growl of something that sounded far too big to be friendly. But none of that compared to the ominous hum of patrol drones sweeping through the air above them. He wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing at Kalara. She moved like a shadow, silent and precise, her silver skin almost blending into the faint bioluminescent glow of the foliage around them. She paused, scanning the area with a device that looked like a cross between binoculars and a compass. They're closing in, she muttered, her tone grim. We have to move. Ethan adjusted the makeshift sling across his shoulder, where a bundle of supplies hung precariously. You sure this plan of yours is going to work? He whispered, keeping his voice as low as possible. Kalara shot him a glare. It's not my plan, she said curtly. It's the only plan. Ethan resisted the urge to argue. They'd spent the last few hours weaving through the jungle, avoiding patrols and navigating terrain that seemed designed to kill them. The goal was simple enough: reach the extraction point, where a stolen transport pod was hidden. But the reality was far from simple. Every step forward felt like another gamble with their lives. As they crept through the undergrowth, Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that Kalara was holding something back. She'd been tense ever since they'd set out, her usual confidence replaced with something closer to desperation. What are you telling me? He asked quietly as they stopped to survey a narrow ravine ahead. Kalara didn't look at him. Instead, she focused on the scanner in her hand. Now isn't the time for questions, she said flatly. Ethan wasn't convinced. If I'm risking my neck for this, I think I deserve to know what I'm walking into. Kalara sighed, her grip tightening on the scanner. Finally, she turned to him, her expression unreadable. The transport pod, it's not unguarded, she admitted. There's a sentry unit stationed nearby. Ethan frowned. A sentry unit. Like one of those drones. She shook her head. Worse. It's a combat droid. Fully autonomous, heavily armed, and programmed to shoot anything that moves. Ethan felt his stomach drop. And you're just telling me this now? I didn't think you'd come if you knew, she said bluntly. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but the sound of approaching footsteps cut him off. Kaylara grabbed his arm, pulling him into the shadow of a large tree. A group of alien soldiers marched past, their armor gleaming faintly in the dim light. Ethan held his breath, his hand instinctively moving to the small pistol at his side. Kaylara placed a hand over his, shaking her head. The soldiers passed without incident, their voices fading into the distance. Kaylara exhaled slowly, releasing Ethan's arm. "We're almost there," she said, her voice barely audible. They moved quickly after that, the tension between them thick but unspoken. When they finally reached the transport pod, Ethan's first thought was that it looked more like a coffin than a ship. It was sleek and black, its surface dotted with faint blue lights. Kaylara approached cautiously, scanning the area. The sentry unit should be. Before she could finish, a loud mechanical whirring filled the air. Ethan turned just in time to see a hulking droid step out from the shadows. It stood over 8 feet tall, its frame covered in thick plating. Twin cannons extended from its arms, glowing with deadly energy. The droid's head swiveled toward them, its red eye locking onto Ethan. A deep, robotic voice echoed through the clearing. Unauthorized presence detected. "Terminate. Run," Kaylara shouted, shoving Ethan toward the pod. The droid opened fire, energy blasts tearing through the jungle. Ethan ducked behind a fallen tree, his heart pounding. Kaylara darted toward the pod, moving with inhuman speed. She fired a shot from her staff weapon, but the blast barely dented the droid's armor. "We can't fight that thing," Ethan yelled, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Then keep it busy," Kaylara snapped, her fingers flying over the pod's control panel. Ethan cursed under his breath, popping up from behind the tree to fire a few shots at the droid. The blasts were pitifully ineffective, but they managed to draw its attention. The droid turned toward him, its cannons charging for another attack. Ethan dove to the side as the ground where he'd been standing exploded in a shower of dirt and debris. "Any time now, Princess," he shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Almost there," Kaylara called back. The droid advanced, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Ethan fired again, aiming for its legs. This time, one of his shots hit a joint, causing the droid to stumble slightly. Kaylara let out a triumphant cry. "Got it. Get in." Ethan didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the pod as Kaylara opened the hatch. The droid fired one last blast, narrowly missing him as he dove inside. Kaylara sealed the hatch and slammed her hand against the controls. The pod roared to life, lifting off the ground just as the droid aimed its cannons at them. Ethan collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. Kaylara sat across from him, her expression unreadable. "That was close," he said, his voice shaky. Kaylara glanced out the window, her gaze hard. "Too close." As the pod ascended into the sky, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that their escape was only the beginning of something far more dangerous. Betrayal and revelation. The room was dimly lit, the air heavy with the hum of alien machinery. Ethan's boots echoed softly against the metallic floor as he followed Kaylara into what she called the vault. It was a cold, sterile place, its walls lined with glowing blue panels that pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. Kaylara moved ahead of him, her posture tense, her eyes scanning every shadow. Ethan had seen her like this before, hyper-focused, prepared for anything. But this time, something felt different. There was an unease about her, a hesitation that didn't match the fearless warrior he'd come to know. "You sure about this?" Ethan whispered, his hand resting on the pistol at his side. Kaylara didn't answer immediately. She paused at a terminal, typing a sequence into the controls with practiced precision. "The vault contains the proof I need," she said finally, "a record of my bloodline." If we retrieve it, I can challenge the usurpers. It's our only chance." Ethan frowned, glancing at the door they'd entered through. "And you're positive no one knows we're here?" Kalara hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but Ethan caught it. Before he could press her, a soft chime echoed through the room. The terminal beeped, and a hidden compartment slid open in the wall, revealing a cylindrical device encased in shimmering glass. Kalara reached for it, but her hand froze midair. "Something's wrong," she murmured. Ethan opened his mouth to ask what, but the answer came before he could speak. The door slammed shut behind them with a loud clang, and a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice Ethan recognized all too well. "Well, well," it said, dripping with mockery. "I knew you wouldn't be able to resist coming here, Kalara." Ethan spun around, his heart sinking as a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was one of the armored aliens, but this one wasn't faceless. He removed his helmet to reveal a scared, pale face with sharp, predatory features. His cold eyes fixed on Kalara with a mixture of amusement and disdain. "Veyron," Kalara hissed, her voice laced with venom. Ethan's hand went for his pistol, but Veyron raised a finger, wagging it like a teacher scolding a child. "Ah, I wouldn't do that, human. You're in no position to start a fight you can't win." "What's this about?" Ethan demanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Veyron ignored him, stepping closer to Kalara. "Did you really think you could sneak in here without me noticing?" he asked, his tone almost playful. "You disappoint me, princess. I expected better from you." Kalara's jaw tightened. "If you know what I came for, then you know what's at stake. Step aside." Veyron chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "Always so stubborn. That's what I've always admired about you." His gaze shifted to Ethan. "And you, the human. Tell me, what lies did she feed you to drag you into this mess? Did she promise you riches, power, or is this some misguided act of heroism?" Ethan held his ground, glaring at Veyron. "She didn't promise me anything. I'm here because I want to be." Veyron smirked. "How noble. How predictable." He turned back to Kalara, his expression hardening. "But you know how this ends, Kalara. Hand over the artifact, and I might consider letting you and your little pet live." Kalara's fingers twitched toward her weapon, but Ethan could see the conflict in her eyes. She wasn't just angry. She was calculating, weighing her options. "Don't do it," Ethan said quietly. "We can fight our way out." Kalara shook her head. "You don't understand, Ethan. If he takes this, everything we've done will be for nothing." Veyron's grin widened. "She's right, you know. I hold all the cards here. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and outsmarted. Just give up." For a moment, it seemed like Kalara might surrender. Her shoulders slumped, and her hand fell away from her weapon. But then she straightened, her eyes blazing with determination. "You've underestimated me before, Veyron," she said coldly. "And it always costs you." Before Veyron could react, Kalara activated the cylindrical device. It emitted a high-pitched whine, and the blue panels lining the walls suddenly flared to life, emitting a blinding light. Ethan shielded his eyes, his vision swimming as chaos erupted around them. Alarms blared, and the floor beneath them began to vibrate. "Run," Kalara shouted, grabbing the device and shoving it into Ethan's hands. "What about you?" he yelled back. "I'll hold them off," she said, already raising her weapon. But Ethan didn't leave. He couldn't. Not this time. He turned back toward her, his grip tightening on the pistol. "We're doing this together," he said firmly. Kalara shot him a surprised look, but there was no time to argue. Veyron was already barking orders to unseen reinforcements, and the sound of heavy boots echoed down the hallway. Ethan and Kalara stood back to back, their weapons raised, ready to face whatever came next. A fight for freedom. The night was eerily silent. The ruins of the stronghold loomed ahead, bathed in the pale glow of twin alien moons. Ethan crouched low behind a jagged wall, his eyes scanning the desolate courtyard. It had been a long, grueling journey to get here, and now they were standing on the threshold of the enemy's heart. Kalara knelt beside him, her sharp eyes glinting in the moonlight. Her breathing was steady, but Ethan could sense the storm raging beneath her calm exterior. She had been quiet since they'd left the jungle, her focus razor-sharp. Now, as they prepared to infiltrate the stronghold, her silence felt heavier, almost suffocating. "You're sure about this?" Ethan asked in a hushed voice, gripping his pistol tightly. Kalara didn't look at him. Instead, she adjusted the blade mounted to her staff weapon. "We don't have a choice," she replied. "The artifact will only prove my claim if we retrieve the core data stored inside. If we fail now..." She trailed off, but the weight of her unfinished sentence was clear. Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. The stakes couldn't be higher. If they didn't succeed, Kalara's chance to reclaim her throne and her people's freedom would be lost forever. They waited for the patrol to pass, their footsteps echoing faintly in the distance. When the coast was clear, Kalara gestured silently, and the two of them darted across the open courtyard. The stronghold was a maze of towering walls and hidden passages, its design both ancient and advanced. Ethan couldn't help but feel a chill as they moved deeper inside. The place felt abandoned, but he knew better. The silence was deceptive. Somewhere in the shadows, their enemies were waiting. As they approached the central chamber, Kalara raised a hand, signaling him to stop. She pointed to a set of glowing blue panels along the wall. "Security sensors," she whispered. "If we trigger them, every guard in the stronghold will be on us in seconds." Ethan studied the panels, his mind racing. "Can you disable them?" Kalara hesitated. "It'll take time." "Time we don't have," Ethan muttered. He scanned the area, his eyes landing on a narrow vent above the sensors. It was a tight fit, but it might just work. "I'll go through there," he said, pointing to the vent. "If I can reach the control room, I might be able to shut the system down from the inside." Kalara frowned, her expression skeptical. "You don't know the layout. You'll get lost, or worse, caught." Ethan smirked. "You underestimate human stubbornness." Kalara stared at him for a moment before letting out a quiet sigh. "Fine, but if you're not back in 5 minutes, I'm coming after you." "Deal," Ethan said, already climbing into the vent. The inside of the vent was cramped and stifling, but Ethan pushed forward, his heart pounding with every movement. He could hear faint voices below, the sound of guards talking in their guttural language. He kept his breathing shallow, praying they wouldn't hear him. Finally, he reached the control room. Peering through the grate, he saw 2 guards stationed inside, their attention fixed on a holographic display. Ethan drew his pistol, taking a deep breath. "This is a terrible idea," he muttered to himself. With one swift motion, he kicked the grate open and dropped into the room. The guards turned, but they were too slow. Ethan fired 2 precise shots, taking them down before they could raise an alarm. He rushed to the console, his fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls. The interface was alien, but some functions were universal enough for him to guess their purpose. He found the security system and disabled the sensors just as footsteps echoed down the hallway outside. "Time to go," Ethan said, grabbing a data pad from the console and bolting out the door. He met Kalara in the central chamber, where she was already facing a group of armored soldiers. Her movements were a blur of precision and power, her staff weapon humming as it struck down enemy after enemy. "You're late," she said breathlessly as he slid into cover beside her. "Had a little trouble with the locals," Ethan quipped, handing her the datapad. "This what you need." Kalara glanced at it, her eyes widening. "It's everything. Let's finish this." Together, they pushed toward the core of the stronghold. The final room was heavily guarded, but Kalara's skill and Ethan's quick thinking made them an unstoppable team. By the time they reached the core, they were both battered and exhausted. But they had won. Kalara activated the core, downloading the data they needed. As the stronghold's alarms blared, Ethan turned to her. We're not going to get out of here quietly, are we? Kalara smiled faintly, a flicker of humor breaking through her grim determination. Not a chance. The reckoning. The ship's engines hummed softly as Ethan piloted it through the thin atmosphere of the alien planet. Below them, the ruins of the stronghold burned in the distance, smoke rising in dark plumes as the final battle raged on the ground. But above the chaos, in the safety of their escape, the weight of what they'd done hung heavy between him and Kalara. She sat in the co-pilot's seat, her fingers gripping the armrests as she stared ahead, her face illuminated by the dim lights of the control panel. Her once defiant posture was now weary, and her gaze never left the distant planet below. "They won't stop," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "Even with the data, even with the truth, they'll hunt me. They'll never let me reclaim my throne." Ethan glanced at her, his jaw tightening. "You don't know that. We have the evidence. We've exposed their lies." Kalara's eyes flicked to him, and he saw the flicker of doubt in them, doubt that ran deeper than anything they had faced in the past. The truth isn't enough. Not when they control everything. The people, the army, the resources. Her voice cracked, a rare sign of vulnerability. "I'm nothing but a memory to them. A ghost of the past." Ethan's heart clenched. He had seen her fight with everything she had. He had seen the strength in her, more than anyone would ever expect from someone in her position. But now, for the first time, he saw the weight of her burdens, the doubts that gnawed at her from the inside. "Maybe the truth is just the beginning," he said, his voice steady. "You don't have to do this alone." Kalara didn't respond immediately. She leaned back in her seat, her shoulders sagging as if the weight of the galaxy had settled on them. Ethan could feel the moment of hesitation, the pause before the decision would be made, whether to go back and face what awaited, or to leave it all behind for good. Suddenly, the console beeped, interrupting the silence. Ethan's eyes shot to the screen, where a new message flashed across. A message from the planet's council, encrypted and urgent. Ethan's fingers flew over the controls, opening the transmission. The face of an older, scared alien appeared on the screen, a figure Kalara would recognize instantly. "You're wasting time," the alien's voice rumbled, cold and heavy. "You think you've won. That data you carry doesn't matter. It's already too late for you, Princess. The people have already made their choice. You can't change their minds." Kalara's breath caught in her throat, and Ethan could see her knuckles whiten as she gripped the armrests even tighter. Her eyes flashed with rage. "You." But the figure interrupted her. "Come back, or face the consequences. You've been given the chance to surrender. Don't make us take it from you." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun. Kalara's gaze hardened as she turned to Ethan, her face a mask of fury. "They don't know me at all." Ethan met her eyes, his heart racing. "What are you going to do?" She stood up suddenly, moving with a purpose. "I'm going to take back what's mine." The word sent a jolt through Ethan's chest. He knew that look, that unyielding resolve. Kalara wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was ready to face them, no matter the cost. "I'm with you," he said firmly, standing from his seat. "Wherever you go, I go." Kalara turned back to the controls, setting the ship's course with practiced ease. "It's not just about me anymore, Ethan," she said, her voice low but steady. "It's about all of us. About freeing the people who've been silenced for far too long." Ethan nodded, understanding now more than ever. This wasn't just a fight for the throne. It was a fight for freedom, for justice, for everything she had lost, and everything they could still save. As the ship broke through the atmosphere and the planet faded into the distance, Kalara's gaze never wavered. She was no longer a princess in hiding, no longer a figurehead for a broken empire. She was a leader, and the world was waiting for her return. But the journey ahead would not be easy. The usurpers were not done with her yet, and their grip on the galaxy was far from broken. Still, Kalara's determination burned brighter than ever, a fire that nothing, no army, no betrayal, could ever extinguish. And as they set their course for the heart of the rebellion, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The reckoning had only just begun.